Hey guys, Jason here with RWB NetSec. In this video, we're going to continue our look at SQLMap and the options that are available for it. And on this one, we're going to be focusing just on the request options that it contains. So I'm going to be using two different web apps for the demos here. I'm going to be using Matilda and DVWA. Both of those can be found on Metasploitable 2, so if you've got that one handy, you can fire it up and then follow along as we go through these. So let's go ahead and get started. So you can see here I've got the list of, I'll just copy these off of SQLMap's GitHub page. These are all of the request options under the request category within SQLMap, and you can see there are actually quite a few of them. I'm not going to be covering every one of these in this video. I just wanted to cover some that were more commonly used. And the ones that I don't cover are going to be things like setting the delay and the timeout. I think these are pretty self-explanatory, so you can probably just sit and mess with those yourself and figure those out. So I'm just going to start at the top of the list here with TAC data, and then we'll just start demoing and working through some of the rest of these options here. So this first option that we're going to look at is TAC data. So this option, by default, when you send an HTTP request with SQLMap, it's going to use GET as the HTTP method. But you can also tell SQLMap to set this as a POST request and then specify the parameters that you actually want to use for testing. So let me minimize this screen here. You can see I've got Matilda up already. And in order to get those parameters, we're going to use burp to capture the request. And then we'll just copy that part of the URL or that part of the request into the command line for SQLMap. So let me go ahead and fire up burp here. And this is the default version that comes with Kali 2. All right, I'll just click that. Yes, I know there's a newer version. So let me go back. And within Iceweasel, I have this add-on here, Foxy Proxy, which allows me to switch between proxies that I want to use. So I can just click on that, tell it to use burp. I've already got it set up within Foxy Proxy. And I'm just going to have it, we're going to be testing against this user lookup page within Matilda. So once you get Matilda loaded, if you just go up to the OWASP 2013, the A1 injection, SQL extract data, and then you can click on user info from there. So I'm just going to do a default request. I'm just going to type in a random name and password. Hit enter and then go over to burp and see you can see here, this is the actual request that's being sent by the application. So this data is what I'm going to copy to use within SQLMap. So I'm just going to right click on that and copy it. And I'll go ahead and forward on the request to Matilda. Just come back here. And then within the browser, I'm going to go ahead and disable burp because I'm not going to need it anymore right here. So if we go to our command prompt, let me clear this out. We can see the command is going to be SQLMap TAC-U, and then we're going to specify the URL to get to our Matilda instance. And that's going to be Matilda/index.php, and then we'll put a double quote there to close it out. Then this next option, we'll put in the TAC data. You'll put an equal sign, put a double quote, and then paste in the URL data that you copied. It looks like it copied everything. So let me go back here. All we want for this parameter is to start with where it says page equals user info. So delete everything else in front of that if it copied it. And I'll go ahead and put the double quote to close it out. And then I'm just going to have it do a DBS on it. And let's go ahead and grab a banner while we're at it. So from here, SQLMap should then take this URL, and these are the parameters that it's going to test against. So we'll hit enter here. And you can see that it was able to get that information back. It found all of these databases and the banner info. This is the version of MySQL that's running on the back end of that Matilda instance. Another thing that you can look at, the parameter separator by default uses the ampersand sign. So if we look at our request here, we can see, like with the username equals admin, and then it uses this ampersand sign to separate to the next parameter of password. If you for any reason need to specify a different separator, a different delimiter here, then you can use the, let me scroll back over here. You can use this tac param del and then specify whatever the, if it's like a semicolon or whatever it is that you want to use there. Normally that's not going to be needed though, so you can usually just stick with the defaults on this one. So the next options that we're going to be taking a look at, let me just pull my text file back up here, are going to be these cookie options. So let's minimize that. So you can use these, and I'm going to be switching over to DVWA for this part of the demo. So if you're testing an application that requires authentication, or if you want to test the cookie parameters themselves for any SQL injection issues, you can use these switches to specify those for SQLMap to look at. The first one we're going to do is just the tac cookie option. So before we can use SQLMap here, we need to actually get the cookie data that's being passed by the application. So if you go to your browser and pull up DVWA, and here again we're going to be using Burp Suite to capture the request so we can see what the cookies are that are set for it. Let me just make sure that let me clear out all my cookies here. And just as a side note, a couple of other add-ons that I'm going to be using under Iceweasel. I've got this Export Cookies add-on and this Cookies Manager Plus. So those come in pretty handy from time to time. So if you don't have those, go ahead and install those so you can follow along through the rest of the demos. So now that we've got the cookies cleared out, I'm going to tell the browser to use Burp again. And I'm going to use the default login and password for DVWA, which is just admin and then password. And go over to Burp. You can see just the initial request, there's not any cookie information sitting here. So if we forward this on, we get the response back from the application, and you can see here we've got these two set cookie headers. And these are the parameters that are being set. So this is our authentication token, and then this other parameter for the value of the security setting. So I'm just going to go ahead and forward that on for now. So once we've got those, I'm going to go back to DVWA. I'm going to disable Burp because we won't need that anymore right here. One thing I'm going to change is the security level under DVWA. I'm just going to go ahead and set this to low, submit that. And then you'll need to come over to this SQL injection link in DVWA. And this is the field that we're going to let SQLMap test against to see if it's vulnerable to SQL injection. So we've got the cookie data. We need to pass that over to to SQLMap. So let me clear this screen out. So we're going to do SQLMap TACU, specify the URL. And let's see here. I do need to specify the actual parameters here. So I'm going to do ID equals, and we'll just use 1. And then we have to include the submit portion of it. All right, and then after you get the URL typed in, we're going to use the cookie parameter. So we'll do tac cookie. We'll do an equal sign, and we need to put a double quote here. And now we just need to go back and get that cookie data that we captured. You can either do that within Burp, or you can pull it out of the browser itself. So since we used Burp, I'm just going to go back to here. Go to the response. Let's see here. So this first parameter, this PHP session ID, we need to get this one. So let's copy that. And if you'll notice here in the response, sorry guys, I'm having a hard time talking today. You can see that there's a semicolon here, and that's the delimiter for the parameters. So this is what separates the parameter values. So the next one that we need to grab is this security. Of course, since we changed it to low, we're going to need to alter that when we copy it in here. So go ahead and put your semicolon, then put a space, and then paste in the security value. Make sure you change that to low. And then go ahead and put your double quote then to close that out. And then I'm just going to do a tac DBS again here. So SQLMap should then take this URL, and it's going to pass in this cookie parameter, which is our authentication token, because DVWA does require that in order to navigate through the other pages. So let's hit enter here and see what happens with it. All right, it actually looks like it was successful. So we've got the list of, these are the databases on Metasploitable. So that you can see that that was successful. And like I mentioned before, as far as the actual delimiters themselves, the default here is that it used a semicolon to separate the values of what we typed in right here. If you need to specify a different delimiter to use, then you can use this tac cookie del, and then do an equal sign, and then set whatever you want to use for the delimiter there. Again, here we just sticking to the default values that are set, so you shouldn't have to change anything there. Another option that goes with the cookies is this tac drop set cookie. So what would happen is, once you've authenticated to a web app and you're running through your tests, there may be times when that web app issues another set cookie header. And if it does, SQLMap is automatically going to try to test those values for SQL injections. So if you don't want it to do that, then you're going to use this switch, and that basically just tells SQLMap to ignore these new headers that are coming through. Another option that we've got is this tac load cookies. So you can actually load a Netscape or wget formatted cookie string, which would just be a text file. And it works the same way as if you were loading like a log file or something else for SQLMap to look at. The way that you get this data, and I'm going to go ahead and back out here. If you go back to your browser and you notice that I said that I had this export cookies tool, if you click on this to export cookies, and I'm just going to leave that default, save that file. So if we go to our desktop and see, it's created this cookies.txt file, and if you open that up, you can see this is what the file looks like. You can feed this text file into SQLMap and it's going to be able to pull out, you can see it's got the PHP session ID and the security parameters. So SQLMap can use it in that form for the authentication required in the web app. So if we just do tac load cookies, do an equals, and I'll just do a double quote and then just point it to that text file, cookies.txt. And then I'll just do the tac dbs again. Well, let's change it up a little bit. Let's do let's just do the DVA database and see if it can grab the tables from there. So we'll hit enter, and you see it was successful. So now we've got these two tables that are located within the DVWA database. So the next option that I'm going to look at is going to be the user agent settings. You've got tac user agent, and then you've got this random agent option. So basically what happens is when SQLMap sends its request out, it has a default user agent that it sends, which is flagged by the term SQLMap. And it may be possible that the network that you're on, they may have a web app firewall in place or an IDS that is looking for that specific string. And if it sees it, then it's going to block those requests. So you can change this information within SQLMap. You can either specify your own user agent to use, or you can set that random agent, and SQLMap will just pick a random agent to stick in there, and hopefully that will bypass any of the filters that are in place. And you can actually view this info to see what's being sent. If you look at the packet trace within Wireshark. So let me go ahead and let's just launch Wireshark quick. Well, I didn't need two instances. All right. So let's fire up SQLMap again, and this time I'm going to specify. I'm just going to let it do it by default first. So we need to tell Wireshark to capture this network traffic that's going to be going across. So if you go to capture interfaces, and then just make sure that your network adapter is selected, and then click on start. We'll go back to the terminal and just let SQLMap run here. Go back to Wireshark and stop the capture. So then if you go up to the beginning of the request here, here we've got our HTTP request. And if we look down here, you can see the user agent that was sent was SQLMap/1.0. So more than likely, if there's a web app firewall or an IDS in place, it's going to see this user agent and flag on it, and will more than likely block the request from here. So now let's take a look at what happens when we specify the random agent option. So I'm just going to close this session out. We're going to start the capture again within Wireshark, go back to our terminal, pull up our command, and then specify random agent. hit enter. Now we'll go back to Wireshark, stop the capture, and you can sort these by the protocol. So if we look now back at our at that particular packet, you can see now that the user agent was set to Mozilla, and it's just set to this default Firefox user agent. So hopefully by doing something like this, you can bypass a web app firewall or an IDS that may be in place that's looking specifically for a SQLMap string to come across. And the last option that I'm going to cover is going to be using SQLMap through a proxy. So let me clear the screen out here. So there may be times when you may want to run SQLMap through something like Burp or another proxy that you've got, just to capture the request so you can see what's going on back and forth. So you can use the, let me pull this file up here. You've got this TAC proxy option, and you've also got this proxy cred option, which can be used if the proxy that you're using requires authentication. You can specify the credentials with this one. So we'll look at this TAC proxy and see how we can use it to send SQLMap through Burp Suite. So if you pull Burp Suite up, if we go to under the proxy tab and then go to options, and you can see the default interface that Burp is set to here. So we can use that information within SQLMap. So if I then just pull up the same command that we'd used before, and this time I'm going to specify the proxy option. We'll do TAC proxy equals double quote, and then we just need to specify the proxy information. And you do need to specify the port that it's going through as well. So we'll set it like that. Now Burp should go through, or I'm sorry, SQLMap should go through Burp. So let's see if Burp actually captures the request. Enter here, and if we go back over to Burp, click on the Intercept tab, now you can see that SQLMap is going through Burp, and you can see here that the user agent, good grief guys, I think I need to go back to bed. The user agent is set to SQLMap, which is the default that we had set before. And then we could go ahead and then forward the request on from there. And you can see SQLMap has now finished running. It came back with the same information that we got before. And we could also try it again here. If we add back in the random agent, hit enter. Now let's see what shows up within Burp on this one. And now the user agent is set back again to this Firefox. So that's how you use SQLMap through a proxy. Let me go ahead and just turn this off and let the request complete. So that's pretty much going to do it for this video, guys. Like I said before, the other options that I did not cover should be pretty self-explanatory. If I pull this list back up here, things that like Tor, you could use SQLMap through Tor, just like you would set it to run through something like Burp. Just use these options here. The delay options, timeout, all of these are pretty simple switches and options to figure out. So I'll leave that up to you to sit and play around with. Like I said in the other videos, I really do appreciate you guys watching this. Sorry for the delay between these, but there's actually been quite a bit of stuff going on here over the last couple of weeks, so I'm trying to catch back up with these videos. But if you do have any questions or comments, just leave them below. I will get to you, or maybe someone else can get to you just quickly. And as always, guys, I hope you have an awesome day. Check back. I will be doing some more SQLMap options. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If it's your first time here, I would love if you subscribe to the channel and share it out with all of your friends. So my hope is to build a community where we can help each other learn and grow in security, especially if you're just getting into it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And again, thanks for watching. Hope you all have an awesome day. See you guys.